Hello everybody, my name is Roxtess.
And I'm Soulgale.
And welcome back to Warframe. Woo. So, Nyx How To. Wow, let's get into it.
Alright.
So, Nyx is actually dropped off of Invasions. Let's see here, Invasions here. And she's actually dropped off of any infested invasions. Anything with the green little triangle here with the upward pointing triangle. Anything that has infested and then you click on it and it says assassination, which there's one right there with Fjord on it. Fjord will always drop a part of Nyx, and you can just obtain all of her parts that way. So she was also released alongside Frost right after the 8 originals. She was the first frame that they came out brand new, and they went ahead and released her with Frost. Again, too, she's just pretty much like a Excalibur. If you think about Excalibur, her skin, her look, everything about her just kind of screams Excalibur. So it's pretty much one and the same thing. And then a little bit of history too there is when I first started Warframe, I started off with Mag as my first Warframe. And then Nyx was actually my first built Warframe. So the first Warframe that I put into the foundry and started to craft and actually obtained was Nyx, and then right after that it was Rhino, then Oberon, then going on to Frost, and then continuing down the line. So Nyx was my first actually fully built Warframe I claimed from the foundry when I started the entire game. Wow, ready for the abilities?
I'm ready.
All right, let's jump to it. All right, her passive. Enemies are 20% less accurate when targeting Nyx. So this is 20% damage reduction, right?
Yeah.
Not really.
Aw.
So 20% damage reduction means that damage is being reduced by 20% in some way. And we say that, 80% slow, that's effectively an 80% damage reduction. Yeah, but the damage has to be constant. Like if I have something firing at me at 10 fire rate, 10 rounds per second. If I have a 50% slow, that means instead of 10 rounds coming at me per second, I only have 5 rounds coming at me per second, therefore reducing the incoming damage by 50%, or basically reducing the damage by 50%. Now, if it's not constant damage, then that isn't really a constant form of damage reduction. But in Warframe, where you have so many units targeting you and attacking you all at the same time, especially with Equinox or Frost, if they're inside of a snow globe or if they're inside of that aura, that's effectively a 80% or a 67% damage reduction. When we're talking about less accuracy, it's based upon Warframe's own system, which is dependent on your accuracy on your weapon. Weapons that have a higher number usually mean that they have a higher accuracy. Anything around 100 will be perfectly accurate on its accuracy test. You'll see that pretty much every shot will hit where you want it to go. And anything lower than 100 is typically kind of worse, getting down to 50. It's still in the reticle, and then down even further than that, it'll just start to kind of spread out. Kind of like a shotgun pallet, you might think, is if you took a shotgun and you shot somewhere on a wall or something like that, you'll see that kind of general spread of the pellets. So that's kind of interesting. But another thing that I find interesting too is it's not quite so simple, I'm guessing, because Opticore has an accuracy on a base of 100. Same thing as the Dara Vandal. So if I put on Heavy Caliber and I negate 55% accuracy, I'm left with an accuracy of 25.2. Interesting. But my base is 100, so it goes from 100 to 25.2. Let's keep that in mind. Then we're going to switch over to the Dara Vandal. So even with the same configuration, the accuracy is at 100%. And then as soon as I put on Heavy Caliber, I get an accuracy of 7.2. So I guess not all weapons are equal in this factor. I'm not sure. Maybe it's because the Opticore is a beam type weapon, and this weapon does something with projectiles and multiple projectiles. I have no real idea why this is what it is. So pardon me, but like this to me doesn't make sense unless there's certain weapon classes that you can take in consideration. So keeping that in mind, yeah, that's something that I really don't know on. But as a general idea for 20% less accurate when targeting Nyx, it has its positives and it has its negatives. The positive is if you are standing still, that like a shotgun, most of those projectiles will miss you. But since in Warframe you're always moving around, this makes it so that some of those projectiles that would have missed you could actually hit you. So I'd kind of take it as, okay, we have 20% damage negation if I'm standing still, but if I'm moving, some of those projectiles can hit me, so maybe add 20% damage. And plus 2, even at a very low spread, which even most enemies have weapons that have a pretty high spread, which most weapons for enemies are going to be around 30 or even 28, down even to 12.5 with the Gorgon. That spread still is pretty consistent. It'll still pretty much hit the same area as with 20% or without 20%. So even there, it's just kind of a toss in the dark whether that actually does add any damage reduction or not. But again, as I said, if you add more spread to a weapon, it can, if you're moving around more often, which Warframe, you're always moving around, it will be able to hit you. Same thing as if you're out bird hunting and you're trying to hit a whole bunch of birds. You're not going to go bird hunting with a rifle. You're not going to go bird hunting with a rifle. You're going to take a shotgun, something that can hit a wide area in the air. And as soon as those birds fly up in the air, you're going to be able to take that shotgun, pull the trigger, and you're going to hit the entire area. You're going to hit everything in the air. That's entirely what a shotgun is for being able to have spread. And when you're firing a weapon that hits more of an area, you're more likely to hit something than not. So you could say, yeah, they're 20% less accurate. That would be a positive for you because maybe you might get 20% less hit. But at the same time, because you're moving most of the time, like a shotgun, you're probably going to be more likely to get hit if you're moving. So standing still versus moving. So there's a negative and positive there. What do we do in math when we take a negative and positive? Well, it's 1 divided by or multiplied by 1.5 because it's 20% better, which you're going to get 1.2. And then you're going to take that 1.2 and you're going to re-divide it back by 1.2, which you're going to get with 1. So really this passive is pretty much 1. You went from 1 and you go to 1. So that pretty much means nothing. There's been no change. Yeah, pretty much no change. Pretty much if you were to put in the blank in the passive and you had, instead of the text that's actually written here, if you had blank written here, there might not even actually be any difference. So having nothing as a passive might actually be what the passive is nothing as a passive. I won't say it doesn't do anything because obviously it says here, it states that enemies are 20% less accurate. But how effective is that? And does that even mean a 1 or 2% damage negation? If projectile does miss, it will miss, but in all reality, it doesn't seem like it's really a passive. It just seems like meh. Alrighty. Mind control. Nyx invades the psyche of a target, confusing enemies and making them fight for the intended cause. Targets then fired upon Nyx receive a damage multiplier. The drain is 25, range is 60 on cast, how far away they can be from you, and they'll still be casted upon. And duration is 45 seconds that the target is underneath mind control. Now this is something that's interesting. Targets then fired upon Nyx receive a damage multiplier. There is actually a 4-second conversion duration, like an immunity buffer, but there's a 4-second damage conversion where when you fire on them for 4 seconds, they'll be able to get gained increased damage based upon the damage that you're dealing to them. This is pretty much the same as Frost's Snow Globe.
Frost.
So he has a 4-second duration that when enemies fire upon his bubble, if you've seen the Frost video before, that it'll increase the health of the bubble. But here's the kicker. Does it say anywhere in the ability description that when enemies fire upon the bubble, that the bubble gets increased health? Frost deep freezes any vapor and moisture in the area, creating a protective sphere with a brief invulnerability to boost its strength. So, yeah, it has a brief invulnerability, but it doesn't directly say that incoming damage increases its strength. It just says brief invulnerability. So, yeah, brief invulnerability means that, okay, it's invulnerable for 4 seconds, but it doesn't actually mean that there's a buildup. So there again, like it's kind of hazy if it actually adds damage by weapons, because it doesn't actually directly say so. And then it's nice that it actually says that there is a time invulnerable. So that's something I kind of wish that Nyx also had, is, hey, how long do I actually have for that ability for me to be able to actually increase the damage? So I wish that that was actually underneath here, but it does pop up on your HUD control on your status bar. So that's really, really nice that it actually does that. But again, I just kind of wish that that was underneath the ability and I was able to see, hey, there's 4 seconds that I can hit the target. You know, even if that's not affected by duration at all. Same thing with Frost. It shows that it's not affected by duration, but I would like to see it underneath the ability. And then the same thing when we were talking about Trinity. Again, I have to pull up Wikipedia page to be able to show, hey, this ability has a cast time or a cast duration or anything like that. I want to be able to see this underneath the actual ability and go, hey, you know, this ability takes a half second to cast or a quarter second to cast, or how long it actually takes to cast, instead of having to go and look it up. So that would be kind of nice to see a little bit more detail in here on the abilities, on what they actually do. And that might be nitpicking, sure, but it's always nice to have a little bit more details in some of these, because otherwise I have to look up all the math and it becomes a little bit interesting. Snow globe, though, like having all the math for the snow globe, yeah, that's a positive or it's a negative. It's always nice just to see the overall health bar and just to see the math actually being done live. Psychic bolts. Nyx launches a cluster of force bolts at enemies using telekinesis to adjust the flight paths and to seek homing targets. It basically has a homing projectile nearby targets and strips some of their defenses. So the drain is 50 bolts. There's 6 bolts. Debuff duration is 11 seconds. Defense reduction is 80%, so you only need 25% bonus power strength to be able to buff this to 100%. And the speed decrease is to infested. It's the little triangle that has the tip of the triangle pointing upwards. Remember this again, it's at 20%. So there we see there's a triangle that's pointing upwards. Over here, when we look at invasions, if you're hovering your mouse over the infested, it's a triangle pointing upwards. If you go to the codex and you go to fractions, infestation has a triangle pointing downwards. I don't know if that's intended. That's kind of weird.
Beats me.
We will work with it. Interesting little point there. But along with psychic bolts, there's another thing that's not written into the ability, and that's it disables all auras. So if you think about Eximuses, or if you think about Ancients. Ancients, for the ancient healers, they provide in the area a 90% damage reduction to all the units underneath their area, underneath their cape. So if there's people around them, they give them, not you, but give them a 90% damage reduction. So that's really, really nice. So you get a 90% damage reduction over the enemies. And how you can tell that they're actually affected by that aura is there's a white bar that pops up when a nearby infested have a nearby ancient. So even though you can't see the ancient, you're able to tell because around their health bar, they have a nice white bar. And then the same thing with Eximuses. If you have an Eximus Guardian, which has the little blue shields surrounding it and that start to rotate around the unit, they also provide to nearby allies a 90% defense reduction. This Psychic Bolts strips that aura, and I wish that, again, it was within the ability and it actually was written in the ability so you could see, hey, this actually takes away that aura. That's pretty nice. This is a pretty nice ability, by the way. This is a really nice ability. Chaos. With a powerful Psychic Blast, Nyx causes max hysteria on the battlefield and confusing all enemies to attack random fractions. Drain is 75, radius is 25 meters, and the duration of the ability is 25 seconds. This is really a good ability just to keep everyone confused. I almost kind of wonder, is this almost a radiation in some way? It is nice to have all the Nyxes on everybody and they're all shooting at each other. That is really funny. Absorb. Nyx absorbs all incoming damage and channels all that collected energy into explosive radial damage. Nyx's weapon damage is buffed based upon incoming damage absorbed when the ability ends. So at the end of the ability, you will get a buff duration of 8 seconds. Drain is 25. Drain per second is 4. Absorb per second is the amount that is absorbed passively. If you can think that there was no one actually firing on you, that won't actually get absorbed into the bubble. This just basically makes sure that you have a passive incoming growth per second. Explosive radius is 15 to 50 meters over the duration of I don't know how long. The explosive radius of the ability goes from 15 meters growing all the way up to 50 meters. Conversion percentage is the conversion percent gained to weapon damage. This is capped at 400% bonus weapon damage, and the buff duration after you end Assimilate to get that conversion is 8 seconds for your 400% bonus damage. And for Assimilate, it has a speed multiplier of 50%. And when you're thinking about the explosion radius, even with the negated range on Assimilate, you will still be able to gain full range based upon time. So it just takes a certain amount of time until you actually hit the cap of 50 meters, even at half range with Assimilate. All right. Well, should we go ahead and hit the mods with this one?
Yeah.
All right. All right, so we have 2 different setups for Nyx.
I only have one.
You just have one. So I do have the balance, and this one is more so toward absorbs ability. Oh, I forgot to mention too. This is another thing that is not written into the ability. Fun little fact. There is a drain per second of 4 per second that's just drained per the ability being channeled. So it's just a passive drain. It'll drain 4 per second. And then by you taking damage, there is a damage energy charge per certain amount of energy that you, how much damage you have taken. So if you take 1,000 damage, it'll drain 8 additional energy per that 1,000 damage. And this is also affected by ability efficiency, meaning that if you're doing some math, that you have 8 energy per 1,000. If you go full efficiency, that would be 2 energy per 1,000. So if you have an energy bar, and we'll take a look at her energy, she has 641 energy, right? So we're going to go ahead and divide that number by 2, and you're going to be left with 320.5 energy. And what this equates to is, okay, per 1,000 energy, or 1,000 damage incoming in, this is how much energy would be remainder. And you can multiply by that by 1,000. You get 320,500 damage. I believe I wrote it down here real quick. Let me double check my math. That is correct. So 320,500 damage. And this is the point I find kind of sucky with Absorb, is even at full max efficiency, what the potential of the ability can do, it cannot even kill level 60s.
Well,
That's what it's capped. That's what it's capped at. I'm being dead serious. If you have Grineer that are level 60 with moderate armor, I think it was like not even all that much armor, but the effective health of the unit, it will straight up just not kill them. They'll still be firing at you. You'll have drained all of that energy, all this 641 energy that you would have built up over time, completely gone, and they're still standing there.
wow.
So, yeah. So this build is definitely for the absorb ability. I really focused on the absorb. We went full efficiency with this one. We have assimilate so that Nyx can move at 50% speed and use weapons while in absorb, but the area of the effect is halved. And like I said before, even if it's halved, it'll still go to the full explosion radius, which is being 50 meters. And at that point, it'll cap. We have Steel Charge. Of course, I love my melee damage. Prime Sure-Footed.
Oh, yeah.
See the Trinity video again. Knockdowns, it's nice not to get knocked down. Arcane Energize, Arcane Guardian. We have Adaption on. She is pretty much almost a sentient in her own right. She gets Adaption. When damaged, you get 10% resistance to a specific damage type for 20 seconds. It stacks up to 90%. This works really well with Absorb because even while Absorb is taking damage, it'll pop Adaption, and Adaption will be able to gain that damage reduction, which is pretty nice. I roll Vitality for 30%, 130% ability, 130 bonus health. And Umbral Intensify for 55% ability strength. For Psychic Bolts, we only need 25% to go to 100% armor strip. That's pretty nice. And for the speed decrease, this is only toward infested, so it's not too useful because it's just toward one fraction. We have Primed Flow for maximum battery, and we have Primed Continuancy just to make sure that our chaos can stay out on the table for a very long duration, since we do have Fleeting Expertise kind of knocking back down our ability duration. Now we have Control. Control is really good for the other three abilities: Mind Control, Psychic Bolts, and Chaos. This build forgoes Assimilate because over time, Assimilate, even as a defense, is just pretty poor. These three abilities do really, really good. So to start off, we're going to buff Mind Freak and we're going to buff Psychic Bolts. Mind Freak has an augment, Mind Control augment. Controlled target inflicts 500% times damage, or I think add 500%. I'm not sure if it's multiplied, but it does add quite a bit of damage onto Mind Control. So we're just going to be focusing on Mind Control. Pacifying Bolts as well. Psychic Bolts augment. Throw an additional 3 Force Bolts. Enemies struck are confused for 10 seconds. And that's where they will just stand there and they cannot do anything. They won't damage you. They won't do anything. And the additional 3 bolts is very useful for catching those infested ancients. Whether it be ancients or eximuses, you're going to be able to knock out those auras, basically meaning that you can kill things quicker and easier without having to go through a whole bunch of eximuses, which is wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
We have Prime Sure-Footed to make sure that we don't have any knockdowns. That's wonderful. Steel Charge for the melee damage. And then we're going to go Umbral Intensify for the 25% bonus ability strength, Umbral Vitality, and Transient Fortitude. And Transient Fortitude here, along with Umbral Intensify, is actually just to buff Mind Control so that you have way more damage increase. As you can see here, instead of just a 500% bonus damage increase, we have a 1000% damage increase, and that's basically a 10 times multiplier. Super useful for
Wow.
damage. We have primed flow for maximum energy. We have primed continuancy for ability duration, and stretch for a little bit more chaos range, and of course chaos duration with the primed continuancy, arcane energize, and arcane guardian.
Yeah.
And then for shards, I didn't really know what to do with this. There's nothing really that you need to kind of buff, or nothing that you really need to worry about. So I went with 4 melee critical damage for mind control, so that I can get as much damage off as I can onto my mind controlled target. Each one adds 25% melee damage, which equates to 125% melee critical damage. This is huge. This is like adding on 1 and I believe a third of a organ shatter. So that's really, really useful. That gets a lot of damage off very quickly. Another thing I did want to note out on mind control, when you have a mind controlled target and they start firing on their own, or they start fighting their own, a thing that you'll start to notice is they will get staggered when fired upon. And whether it be staggered or knocked down, they will actually get knocked down or staggered. And this can actually take them out of operations where they can't fight for you. So that's kind of annoying, because this is the only thing that really is offensive for her. Other than, like, chaos is just kind of passive. Psychic bolts just strips everyone. But this is the only thing that really is offensive. And of course, the absorb is the only thing that's defensive. So that's kind of weird that, both the abilities that are offensive and defensive on this unit, this Warframe, are kind of sucky, because absorb only absorbs up to a certain amount of damage and then it stops. And then mind control, the target that you can mind control can also get knocked down. So that's something that's interesting to see. Well, should we try out this build?
Yeah.
Alrighty. I believe you're going to go for the assimilate,
Yes.
the absorb.
The one build that I have.
The one build that you have. And I'm going to go ahead and go with the all 3 ability. The very aggressive one.
All right.
Alright. And ref.
We're off.
Your job is to distract the enemy while a fellow
And because I have a whole bunch of Archon shards, I'm going to be using melee most of the time.
make your
Oh yeah.
life support has been cut off. They're trying to choke you out. Hold on.
And you can see the conversion. We have 3,145 for a mind control target. And he takes a little bit. What I can do is I can strip targets for him. And the strip also does shields. I forgot about that. But the strip also fully strips shields as well.
I am very slow.
So if you're watching Corpus, you'll be able to strip the shields right off of the targets.
Strip the shields.
And he's very quick about killing things. But at the same time, if he does get near a corrupted heavy gunner, or if he gets near the Bursa, he'll get knocked down. And he'll have to go through an entire animation of getting knocked down.
Yeah. I am just slow. That's why I have my hammer. The twirly ability.
Good.
Oh, you know what would have been really nice? To have my dagger.
Oh yeah. For speed?
Yeah. And I could do Will of Life.
I'm mainly just sitting behind my dude, just letting him do his work.
Yeah. I can be in bubble all day if I wanted to. Not higher levels, though, I would have to say. Not higher levels.
No, yeah. At some point, Nyx really falls off.
Yeah.
He just stands there. Also, repressing the ability kills the target that you've captured. So it completely resets. After 50 seconds or whatever, it completely decasts the ability.
Yeah. Nyx was actually really helpful for
Oh, Kuvaliches.
Kuvaliches
Right.
and the sisters, and
Because she can strip the shields
she can strip the shields.
right off of Kuvalich. That's what we used her for, mainly.
Yeah.
That was like the only utility that she could actually do was strip the Kuvalich's shields.
And the tenant sisters.
Yeah. I forgot about that completely.
I didn't. I'm like an elephant. I don't forget things.
Nope. But you can see even with pretty good damage, he's taken quite a bit of time.
Yeah. I want to see this. I have to get out of my bubble because I'm slow. Ah.
Let's see if I can't get more damage than just 3,000. Nope.
Would you like some healing?
I got 3,000 even with full stacks.
I healed you.
Well, thank you.
It was bad. Oh, that's you. I healed. What?
And these are only what level?
40?
40.
41? 40?
My minion is not doing a very good job. He's trying, but he's not doing a very good job.
I love having my bubble this color because I can see it.
Oh yeah. Well, you can see through
out
it.
of it.
Yeah. I don't even know what target I hit. Ooh, that's pretty near 4,000. Same thing with the low life, you decast it because the target.
Yeah.
The two abilities are really similar. Oh, there's a heavy gunner. Ah,
Oops.
she disappeared from my screen.
Did I kill her?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, shall we go?
We go.
All right.
Another job well executed.
All right. Well, yes, that was Nyx. So, kind of hit me again too. Same thing with like the Orokin storage container. This is something though that, especially from the very beginning of the game, I got Nyx, and don't look at my dog.
Well, I'm looking at my dog playing with the ball.
You don't want to see my dog. He's having brain worms.
Mine's already have a brain.
But I really wanted to, like, at the very beginning of the game, I really wanted to use Nyx. That's the reason I got Nyx. right off the bat. The first Warframe that I actually built. I actually wanted her to be kind of like my main. I really liked the abilities. I really liked how everything was going really well together. But as you can see with the abilities, especially with Mind Freak, the damage potential there is just non-existent because it can't even kill level 40s. With the ultimate, as soon as you start hitting higher levels, the ultimate just, as a defense, mainly doesn't do really well at all because of the damage cap. It just won't kill level 60s, anything beyond level 60s. And then as well for just being a defense, it's pretty awful because she can't move. You're in assimilate. As soon as a nullifier comes up and is able to just pop you, you're just open. You're
Yep.
open game for everything. So this is just kind of to the point, like, what is Nyx like other than chaos? Chaos does do pretty good. And the second ability does pretty good for stripping ores. Like, the second ability is probably the best in terms of abilities for her, just because it has a really good strip. It removes armor, it removes shields, it removes auras. It does really well. But just her offensive and her defensive capabilities are just pretty awful.
Yeah.
So that's just something that, like, I really wanted to use her, and even Frost is just much more substantial, got more defense, and he has actually quite a really good offense as well. So yeah. Yep. And I do mention things to improve quite a bit. I try not to as much, but I have a really mean rework for Nyx. It's something that I worked on. I was just kind of like, wonder what could actually make her a little bit better. I have a mean rework for her. It took a little bit of time, not too much time to make it. And I was like, this would suit her pretty well. It would keep the abilities the same as her original form, the original idea of Nyx, which is her basic 4 abilities, but it would just buff her so that she's more defensive and offensive, and she would actually have potential. And right now, like, anything beyond level 60, she just isn't viable. And there's a lot of frames that are viable beyond level 60. And unfortunately, she's just not that frame. So yes. Well, is that all the time we have for this episode?
Unfortunately, yes.
And we will see you guys in the very next video. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.